If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my. I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome to NBA Player Performance, Friday, November 15th, 2024, the first Friday of the NBA Cup. We got 12 games on the card tonight. We got 8 official plays, and we have 3 top dogs in the house to talk about it. I'm your host, The Shark. We got the prop master, Luke Shuey, and we got downtown Junior Brown coming off a beautiful night downtown in Central America, having some drinks. I'm jealous. Junior, how you feeling this morning?
Yeah, watching Jaden Daniels come back to earth last night, feeling great. NBA full card. Love to hear what you guys have to say so that I can maybe get in on some late action. Luke, good to see you. Sharky, let's go whenever you're ready.
Luke, coming off a nice business trip yesterday. How you feeling?
I was just gonna say I'm ready to rock and roll after a couple days absent here in New Jersey, getting some grind done. But I'm studied up, ready to roll, and I think I got some bangers here for you guys.
Not waiting around. 7 o'clock, big time stuff here. I'm wearing the hat. Defending Eastern Conference champions in this in-season tournament, as it was called last year, the Emirates NBA Cup this year. Big game here. I got to look, and we're going to throw it to the prop master first for the opening play of this Friday show. Terry Rozier, PRA under 29.5.
Yeah, I'm going under here. You guys that watch the show know I love unders. I think there's a lot of sharp unders, particularly on primetime nights like Friday nights. Everyone in the public is taking overs, and unders tend to be a little bit sharper for that reason. So if I can find a value play under, that's where I lean. And this one is a little bit unique. So Terry Rozier's line is at 25.5 PRA, so points, rebounds, assists combo. And his season average is 22.1. So it's a big difference. It's a 4+ point difference there. Usually when I see that, the odds makers are telling us something and I go the opposite and I go over. In this scenario, it simply is just way overpriced in my opinion. And thus I'm taking the under. I'll break it down just with a couple of stats. So despite playing a ton of minutes, Rozier's gone under this number 6 straight games, and he's only averaging 18.1 PRA in the month of November. That's like a 7-point difference. I just refuse to deny that type of value. And I do think with the NBA, in-season tournament, the Emirates Cup, you might get a little more defense than normal. You might not in this one because it's the Pacers. But if they do, I think it's even more reason that Tyler Hero is going to keep chucking shots, get the ball to Bam Adebayo. I don't see Rozier putting up 15+ shot attempts here. I'm going under. I don't know if that correlates with what you guys got, but that's my play here.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about it off the air, but, Indiana's sitting here at 5-6. Not an indicator of where they're going to be long term. And I think it's really psychological. I think they haven't really brought it early season. Of course, going to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, maybe being a little too big time in their own mind, if we're being truthful about this. And I think this is where they're probably going to hone it back in a little bit. They are the defending Eastern champs of this tournament. And I think this is where if they're going to bring it early season, they will bring it. And this is where you're seeing the line get steamed significantly from -2 to -4.5. The total, I think, is an interesting conversation. Junior, any thoughts on this one?
Not really. The last time we did a show together, I went as far as to say Miami was ass. I know some people don't like that. J.A. Cavalier, the boss, being a season ticket holder, probably doesn't love that. So I'll elaborate. Miami's a sub-500 ATS teams for 2 seasons running, and they're 4-6 ATS right now. So from a better standpoint or a capper standpoint, they're ass. So I stay away from Miami whenever I can. I'm either fading them or I'm not on it. So it's either Indiana or nothing for me. I think just to expand on your point, Indiana hasn't come close to reaching their ceiling this season. And until Tyrese Halliburton finds some consistency in this game, I think they're asking Pascal Siakam to do a little bit too much with some of the injuries they have. So I think their success is directly linked to Tyrese Halliburton. So maybe some of his player props, even though I'll leave that to Luke, might be worth a look.
Yeah, and truthfully, I think the over in this game is a solid look. And, when you really look at what Indiana did last year to get as far as they did, they played at an incredibly high pace. They shoot a ton of threes. Their shooting percentage is incredibly high. And I think to get back to their efficiency within the win-loss calendar, Carlisle is going to encourage them to get back to that because they're currently running, I believe, 18th pace, which is not where this team functions well. And, this is not 1986 basketball where low pace wins. This is contemporary ball where you get out and run, you shoot a ton of threes. Steph Curry changed the game, and a lot of these players we're seeing now were actually, in middle school about 10 to 12 years ago when Steph was coming up. So this really is the Steph Curry generation with contemporary young players. They like to run and gun. They like to shoot. I think the over is the best look. I have a look on the money line for the Pacers. As I said, I think this team is not losing at home in the in-season tournament. This is where they find their refocus. Last year, they ran a clean sheet at home in this tournament, going 3-0. They beat Milwaukee, they beat Boston, and they hammered Detroit. This is where you want to buy low on a team that has, as Junior mentioned, a much higher level. And I think we're going to see it tonight, 7 o'clock here, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Buy hat engaged. Taking the money line. I had this at 2 overnight. It's 4.5 now. I don't want to advise you guys to take a ton of juice, but love the Pacers here at this point. And Luke on Terry Rozier, PRA under 29.5. Staying at 7 o'clock, Kia Center in Orlando. Interesting game here on a lot of fronts in the NBA Cup on this Friday. 76ers 2-9 straight up, 1-4 on the road. Abysmal on all fronts. Embiid was hurt. He's back. Now Maxi's hurt. Paul George trying to figure it out with this group. So many moving parts. This team will improve long term, and Junior thinks it starts tonight with Philly plus 2.5. Junior, talk to me on this one.
Yeah, I just think that the point that Embiid and Paul George being back combined with, and I mentioned this the last time we capped Orlando's two, just forget about talent-wise, the two biggest players in their lineup are both injured. So that is going to matter when they go up against this Philly team that has one of the biggest, most unstoppable offensive players in the league. Now, caveat is he doesn't look like that, but if he's ever going to get back to it, you would figure it's going to be against a team that doesn't really have anyone that can match up straight up with him. Add to that fact that Orlando's offense is still, I don't want to use the word putrid, so I'm going to use the word, way below average. So for that reason, I just like Philly here. Listen, Philly's the more talented team, especially with Banchero out, and you're giving me the more talented team taking points. I mean, I don't want to say I have a responsibility to take that, but, Capper School 101 says I have to take the points with the better team and the best player on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking on this line and the line movement, we've seen significant steam coming towards Orlando. This actually did open, I believe, 36 hours ago or somewhere in that window. Of course, no games yesterday, so these did open earlier than usual versus game day. This opened at Philadelphia minus 3.5. So if you actually trust what the books think of this game, the books actually like Philadelphia on the road to win by 4 points, and now you're getting plus 2.5. So you talk about value and maybe just market steam, being syndicate steam on some sort of narrative or just a numerical take that we're not looking at here. But we're certainly looking at Philadelphia. Junior's officially on plus 2.5. And you're talking about the inefficiency of Orlando to score really does correlate with an official from Luke on this game. Looking at Franz Wagner under 26.5 points.
Yeah, and so you guys brought up all the interesting points for Philly. I was on Paul George's over on Tuesday night on this show. He went over 17.5. He put up 29 points. You could go back there. The value shows that George could have another big night. But I think the best play on the card here, and it might actually be on my VIP plays once I break that down later, is Wagner's under here in the points line. So to get 26.5, it's just way too high. I actually think in some books it's already down at 25.5 over the last hour, and that still is great value. And my analytics show projection of 21 to 22 points, which is right at his season average. Yeah, the line's inflated a little bit because he's having to get up a shit ton of shots with Banchero out, but it should be more of a physical battle tonight with Philly's defense. I think, the likes of Embiid protecting the rim, Paul George getting out and defending. He may not be primary defender, but he's a great help side defender. I just think they'll protect the rim a little bit better and force the ball out of Wagner's hands because the Magic don't have a lot of other shooters, other skill guys healthy right now. And so I think the under's the play. Might be on my VIP card, so get in on it early.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. And you're seeing, the total of this game sitting at 209.5. This is going to be a real old school playoff pace. and style of game. So Junior on +2.5 and Luke on under Franz Wagner. My first official here of this broadcast, 7 o'clock in Toronto, taking the Raptors at home at +2 now. And, I was looking at X yesterday, and I have a couple people that are from Toronto, and they're just so low on their team. And I think it's an interesting snapshot from a fandom to handicapping standpoint. When fans are too high on their team and they tell you they're never going to lose, fade that. When fans are way too low on their team and they say, listen, Sharp, I know my team better than you. I watch every game. They stink. Buy them. The emotions of fans are highly polarized. We try to center it. And I really do love the Raptors here on Friday night. And, when I'm looking at this, we've been buying Detroit almost every single game. I did actually sell Detroit correctly at Charlotte, and they did take a loss there. So I really do have a good feel of when to buy and when to sell Detroit. I think this is a really tough spot for Detroit. I think this is off of back-to-back overtime games, playoff-style games, a totally demoralizing loss the other night in Milwaukee on the back end of a back-to-back where a kid missed 2 free throws to close regulation, which would have won the game, and then they proceeded to not cover in overtime. Now you got to stay on the road. You got to go to an angry Raptors team who performs very well in their home stadium with this young group, 4-1 ATS, and you get this dynamic that stands uniquely within the NBA Cup. Teams like Toronto largely have nothing to play for this year in terms of long-term championships or any sort of exposure in the national media. This is Friday night in Toronto. This is this coach, Darko Rajakovic, Serbian guy, passionate, fiery, ready to go. This is basically a game 7 for these guys. And you've seen it already outside of the NBA Cup. Toronto is actually 2-0 ATS at home on Friday nights. So you talk about energy. Friday night is a big energy in any major city. And RJ Barrett, Grady Dick, and these guys turn up to the moment. And final point on this, Detroit did beat Toronto the last 2 times these teams played last year, both in Detroit as a small favorite. So when you see the line on this, you get a double revenge game, and you get what I like to call the book line. So many people are on Detroit because of recency bias. Handicapping is always about being one step ahead of the movement to the future. And I truly think this is a great buy spot for Toronto here, favored in the opening market at -2.5 for a reason. Books are not giving you free money on Detroit. Books are not missing the line. This is a Toronto spot. They will be turned up at 7 o'clock in Toronto, taking Toronto at +2. First collaboration play of this broadcast between myself and Junior. Big time stuff here. 7:30 ESPN National, 6:30 in San Antonio. Spurs hosting the Lakers. A lot of conversation here. I have a lot of points. Junior has an official. I have an official. Junior, talk to me on this one.
Yeah, I swear to God, I thought you were about to say that it was a collab play between me and you on the Pistons or on the Raptors. I was gonna be like, my dude, I know I grew up in Toronto, but pump those brakes because I don't want no parts of that whatsoever. All jokes aside, though, I am on San Antonio here for one very specific reason. Again, not to be too cliche with the things that we're saying, but defense travels, and as long as San Antonio is going to play right around a top 10 defense while having one of the most talented players in the league, I'm going to be a believer in what they do. I'm going to be way more willing to take points with them, especially with a Lakers team who showed us that they're a team with talent, but it's all very top heavy. They have one of the worst benches in the NBA. And even though they've pulled off 3 wins in a row, again, I'm going to be a bit cliche, but this is one of my cliches. It ain't about wins and losses. It's about who you beat and who beats you. And their last 3 wins, because they've won 3 games in a row, they're just not impressive wins. They've beaten the Grizzlies without Ja, they beat the Raptors, and they beat the Sixers without everybody. So I just think that playing against a San Antonio team that's going to put up a little bit more resistance, the Spurs are worth a look. Not saying they're going to win the game, but at home in a motivation spot with Wemby coming off the best offensive game of his career, now he gets to go up against one of the best players of all time, so you figure he's going to be motivated. I just like the specific spot for San Antonio. Not saying they're going to win, I'm saying they're not going to quit until the buzzer sounds, which is exactly what you need. Sorry, to cover a spread this big.
Yeah, jumping off it, I'm also officially on the Spurs at plus 3.5. I think they could win this. I absolutely think they could win this. And I think what you're looking at here really goes back to the Toronto conversation, but this has so much more emphasis. This Spurs group is way further down the line than Toronto. And this is where these teams, I mean, the Spurs, to be honest, kind of remind me of a young Pacers team last year where nobody was talking about them. I think the Spurs could honestly go into the playoffs within this NBA Cup. They really have the makeup for it. They have a young Wembanyama. Just dropped 50 points in the last game. You talk about a psychological gap in this game. LeBron is talking about retiring next year in the presser yesterday, and Wemby's sitting here dropping 50, best game of his career. This is your classic career arc. LeBron at the end of 23 years, Wemby at the beginning of 15 to 20 years. You always want to buy low on the future, as I said. And I think what you're really looking at here is just a great matchup for the Spurs. A far worse, younger version of the Spurs last year actually did go 3-0 ATS against the Lakers, 2-0 ATS at home, did beat the Lakers outright in the only game LeBron was involved back on December 15th last year, with emphasis, 129 to 115 on a very similar line, plus 4.5. And I just think when you look at what the Lakers are doing on the road this year, they're not traveling well at all. 0-5 ATS on the road. Only other time they played 3 consecutive home games and had 3 straight outright wins, it was to open the season. They went on the road game 1 off that cluster and got just beat down 5 straight games. Spurs will be turned up. This is going to be live at Friday Night National. And as I said with the Toronto game, these home teams, these young teams, these are game 7s for them. You want to be buying these young teams at home in the NBA Cup. Last year, Junior and I were doing a show, and we were trying to figure out the psychology. Will these players care? I actually, at this point last year, thought they probably wouldn't care. I thought it was kind of cliche. The finals are in June. Like, this is it's corny almost. It proved not to be, to the surprise of myself. So just adjusting very quickly to what we saw last year. This is where you want to be buying these dogs and these home teams on Friday night in the NBA Cup. Absolutely love the Spurs here at plus 3.5. Big time stuff. I thought this might have been a national game, but then I remembered the Nets don't really have any top players right now. Nets at Knicks. Battle
Sharky, can I interrupt actually?
Absolutely.
I don't mean
it's
to
Friday.
butt in.
Look, it's Friday conversation. We hope people are watching NBA player performance and hanging the hell out with us. Talk to me.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a lean actually on the Lakers game because you brought up LeBron in the retirement conversation. And it's just nuts that, you can be talking about retirement coming off 3 triple doubles in a row. He's putting up 24, 8, and 9. It's just crazy that, he could be retiring with that stat output. But my lean here, if anyone's interested, is actually fading LeBron's assist line. So lately his numbers are just insane. I mean, he's averaging 11.7 assists per game in November through 6 games, double digits pretty much every night. But odds makers know that's not historically what he does. Yes, he's later in his career. He's going to dish the ball more. But I have him projected for 8.5. The line's 9.5, which is well below what he's doing. I think that shows us something. So I don't want to be too lengthy on this. Just a lean is LeBron under his assist line.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I saw 3 consecutive triple doubles. He hadn't done that in 5 years. The oldest player to do it by, like a decade or something. So just incredibly impressive stuff. If he retires, it certainly won't be because he's lacking quality. I think it's maybe just mental burnout after this long period of time. It just maybe the joy is gone and he's got other stuff in his life that he's more focused on. But we're never going to deny this guy's ability to play great basketball. But we like the Spurs at that point. But going back to New York City here, Madison Square Garden, 7:30, Nets at Knicks. Knicks off a really abysmal loss to Chicago the other night, but Knicks were on a back-to-back. They had beaten Philly the previous night. It made sense. They didn't have any legs. Now they get to come back. This would be a motivated spot off that loss. I have a total in this game. Junior looking at the Nets at plus 9.5.
Yeah, again, the things that I'm choosing to bet on are just the trends because that's all we're doing as cappers are trying to find trends and banking on them. And the trend is the Knicks defense is still a mess. Again, we associate Tibbs with good defense, and their defense has been improving. So I don't want to say that it's completely horrible like it was in the first 5 games of the season. That being said, I feel like that has a lot to do with their opponents recently. If you just go look at the schedule, I won't bore you with the names. A lot of these teams are offensively challenged. So I think that Brooklyn, a team that Shark mentioned that they have no stars, and that hurts them and helps them in the sense that every night you actually kind of have no idea where the scoring is coming from. So it's not like you can focus in on one guy and say, we're going to shut this one guy down and then get a win. I think in this specific spot, the way that the Brooklyn lineup is made up, I think they match up well with the Knicks players. That's just my personal opinion. People might disagree with that. I think that Brooklyn can hang around because, again, that's all we need them to do in these spots, right? I'm not saying Brooklyn is better than the Knicks or they're going to win against the Knicks. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is 9.5 points, and Shark knows what I'm going to say, is reserved for the elites. Only elite teams should be laying 9.5 points. The Knicks are not an elite team. They're a good team. They certainly aren't elite. And while Brooklyn is a bottom half team, they aren't bottom feeders anymore. I just think the number's a little bit too high. I have this game capped at 7, 9.5. I'm all over that. Again, I guess today is a day of just playing the numbers. But again, that's what we do for a living. And I just think this number is just too high, so I had to take it.
Yeah, I mean, Brooklyn's been great against the spread. I wouldn't entirely disagree there. My official play, I'm looking at the over at 215. That has gotten steamed up a little bit now. I think 215 and a half, 216 or something like that. And that's very intelligent steam. And this is just a great buy low on both teams in this game. The Knicks at home started 0-3 versus the over. I bought the over against Chicago the other night. I expect a continued momentum point upward for the Knicks scoring the basketball at home. And the Knicks are averaging 116.5 points per game at home. They do have the 4th offensive rating in the league. And we know the trade, bringing Karl Anthony Towns into this group, and of course, Michael Bridges, is more of an offensive type of trade cluster than anything. And you look at what Brooklyn is doing here, also a great buy low. Before going over the other night against Boston, emphatically 139 to 114, Brooklyn was actually 0-5 versus the over in their previous 5. 5 straight incredibly low-scoring defensive games, averaging only 207.4 points per game. So it's just a beautiful buy low on both sides of this game. And I was looking at the Brooklyn road overs this year. They went over versus teams that had similar stylistic play to the Knicks. And the Knicks overs this year are very dependent on the opponent having a low defensive rating and a high three-point percentage, which is exactly what Brooklyn does. They have the 12th three-point percentage in the league, and they have the 24th defensive rating in the league. I think the Knicks are going to come out fired up, juiced up. I think the Knicks could drop 125-plus points tonight. I see this game somewhere in a range of 230 points, and it really is a great buy low. Final point on this, 4 matchups last year started 0-3 versus the over, and books were moving the lines down, suggesting more unders. This is the second consecutive time they're moving the line up. The last matchup did go over at Madison Square Garden on April 12th, 111-107, Knicks 218. I see this game somewhere in that range, 218 to 230. Love the over here at 215. Junior on plus 9.5. 2 more games within this window. No officials. We want to bring you guys small conversation on every game. Wizards at Hawks. Grease fire, disaster, disrespectful basketball. Wizards are 2-8 ATS. Only wins against Atlanta. So when Washington plays Atlanta, divisional matchup, 2 bad teams, Washington plays well. This is an egregious line for Atlanta, laying 9.5 points. This is where you want to potentially buy the Wizards in some of these games where they're going to cover only against Atlanta. And another divisional matchup at 7:30 in Cleveland. Cleveland's 13-0 against Chicago. These teams just played last week. This is a push line. We think Chicago could scrap it up against a team, Cleveland, who is honestly way too hot at this point at 13-0. I think the Bulls are leaning this game, but keeping it moving. 8 o'clock in Oklahoma City. Going to the prop master for this one. Interesting game here. Oklahoma City, 10-2. Phoenix, 9-3. No Kevin Durant, no Chet Holmgren. But, Luke, talk to us on Yusuf Nurkic under 26.5 PRA.
Yeah, and this is maybe, more of a unique play. I think I actually like Nurkic as a center for the Suns team. I think he's a really good role player. He doesn't do too much. Solid rebounder and defender. But I don't think he's going to rack up stats tonight. So I have his under 26.5 PRA. And he's only averaging 20.8 PRA on the season. He's facing a tough Oklahoma City Thunder defense. Yeah, I know Chet Holmgren's out. I don't think that affects his numbers drastically here. And then one of the most important factors here is he's actually questionable coming into this game. So if he doesn't suit up, I'm sorry, your play will void. But if he does play, I don't expect him to be 100%. His ankle is bothering him, and he might not even get full minute share tonight, which actually provides even more value on the under. So I don't want to dive too much in the numbers here. I think it's simply a value play and potentially minute share decrease. I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something there. Junior, any thoughts on this game? I know you like Phoenix. I think you like Oklahoma City, too. I mean, what gives in this one?
Yeah, I just don't love what I'm seeing with Oklahoma City's rim protection. You would obviously assume with Chet out, it would go down, and that's exactly what's happening. It's getting worse with every passing game. So I kind of just want to pay attention more to how they're going to solve this problem because they basically look like an AAU team right now. They're just running a bunch of guys that are all the same height, and I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure what the long term plan here is. So we have to cap them differently. Like remember when Chet was in, they were putting up historical defensive numbers. They were allowing like less than 1 point per possession. That has completely flipped the other way since he's gone. So I don't really have a good handle on how to handicap them yet. I need to see some more games.
Yeah, yeah, this is a tough game. I think this is going to be a tight line. I think this is probably a push line. And we saw this 2 games ago, their first game without Chet Holmgren against the Clippers. They basically pushed the line. They were laying 6.5 at home, 134, 128. And as you mentioned, no defense without Chet. Of course, they did hold the Pelicans to under 100 points, but the Pelicans right now are running a G League roster, so that's not applicable at all to this conversation. I think Phoenix is actually a sell point at this point in the season, just statistically. 9-3 straight up, but 5-7 ATS. And generally, when teams are winning a lot of games but not covering, it actually speaks to a lack of efficiency that they're running too hot against the money line. Usually, when you're not good ATS, that actually means that you should actually decrease in terms of your win rate straight up. I think they've been getting away with it for a little while here. And without Kevin Durant kind of flirting with it against Utah, the last game obviously looked very unimpressive at Sacramento. Again, I think this line is probably sharp. I think Phoenix does bounce back from that loss to a certain degree. It was on a back-to-back. This is one of those where, we want to give a shout to J.A. Cavalier, our guy. He loves the money line parlay. I don't think OKC is losing this game tonight. I think it's going to play very similar to that Clippers game, 6-7 points. So if you want to package this with a game, say like Junior said that he doesn't think the Knicks will lose to the Nets, but the Nets will cover. Take the Knicks. The Knicks aren't losing tonight, I don't think, at home. Take OKC, Knicks, maybe the Pacers, and a couple others. You could really get, truthfully, it's very square oftentimes, this type of conversation, but it's very authentic and real anyway. There's a bunch of favorites tonight that are probably not losing home games in the NBA Cup. So package them a little bit. You can definitely see some value there. Luke, any thoughts on the packaging of these type of things?
I actually love it. I know you said it's square because public bettors love to take money line parlays, but if you do it correctly with teams that simply should not lose, it's a great play. I still think you can make a great bet out of it, and this is the spot I would do it. Certainly with the Thunder, I absolutely love them tonight as well.
Yeah, it's just, we always try to middle. I think in this life of handicapping, there's people that are, the 99% are very, very public, square thinking, not numerically backed at all. And then there's maybe like 1% or less who are, I would say, almost too contrarian, like too obsessive over doing the polar opposite of what the norm is. So you got to try to middle that. Junior, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got into an argument with a guy on Twitter a couple of months ago who said that I was an idiot because I did moneyline parlays. I tried to explain to him that the average 2-team parlay on the spread, your odds of winning those, well, you have to hit 28%-ish to make a profit, right? If I'm if I'm playing a money line parlay that pays out even money minus 110, well, clearly I am now at a significant advantage versus a person who does that on the spread. I think people just don't understand the math behind the numbers. If I could give anybody advice, take these money lines, whether it's minus 110 or plus 250 or whatever it is, and convert them to break even odds to see whether or not you're making a bet that has value. Because just going by the money lines, you're not understanding exactly what you're doing. And I'm not saying that in a condescending way. Just research any sharp bettors and how they bet, and you'll see that that's kind of the foundation of where everything starts, understanding the actual value of the bet that you're making.
Yeah, and as you said, combining two or three money line sides to minus 110 is exactly the same as betting one ATS side at minus 110. So it's not like so outrageous numerically. It's the same thing in terms of price and probability.
Right.
So
I mean,
just
minus 110, I got to hit 53% to make a profit. At plus 260, which the average two-team money spread parlay is, I got to hit 28% to make a profit, which tells you that you're not really actually going to win that bet too often.
I have 2 cents on this too. You know, this is important to educate the public bettors. I get asked so often, I mean, daily in the DMs, give me a 5 prop parlay. And I'm like, you know what? You can parlay our picks. We will go 5-0 on some days, and that's great. You cash out huge. But that's not how we make money consistently. You know, month over month, we're in the green because we win straight up props too. Like, that's how I bet props. That's how I do it successfully, is not by parlaying them. Yes, we do that as a bankroll builder when it hits very low risk, kind of for fun, a fun add-on. But to do it and win, you have to be taking straight bets, or heavily favored props and combining them, just like you guys said for ATS.
Yeah, and just one final point on this is, you know, when you see a parlay, like you said, five bets, a lot of implied odds. You know, if you're getting 50 to 1 return, this is something that people are not entirely in tune with. What it means is that your probability to hit is 50 to 1. 51 return is 50 to 1 a hit. So it's literally a lottery ticket. And most of these wild parlays you see on X and Instagram and these other platforms, you're being showed the winning ticket. You're not being shown millions of losing tickets on these same plays. So just remember, they're only showing you the ones that win. It's not a sustainable model. And if you're getting 50 to 1, you're at a very low percentage to hit. So just keep that in mind. And speaking of low percentage to hit, 2 more games at 8 o'clock here, just absolutely garbage to bet. Not a garbage game at all. Clippers at Rockets, NBA Cup here. This is a rematch of a game played a couple nights ago. We said it on the show. We thought the Rockets were right on the number. They basically were. 4.5, they won by 8, 111-103. Now you're seeing 2 consecutive games, the same teams in the same gym, on the same line. Books are telling you it's another game that's going to play almost to the point of the previous game. Super difficult to bet. I know a lot of people like to buy the opposite team when these teams play back-to-back games. They say, okay, Rockets beat them, Clippers come back, more motivation. It's hard to beat a team 2 times in a row, like a playoff series. I don't entirely agree with that, particularly when it's played on the road twice for the Clippers. I would lean to the Rockets to take care of business here and not lose. This also really connects with the idea of younger teams who care more in the NBA Cup. Tough game regardless. Another really tough game at 8 o'clock. Nuggets at Pelicans. I think Jokic is not playing tonight. The Pelicans are not playing basically anybody. This is Brandon Ingram and a bunch of guys. Pelicans will be a bye team at some point. They are really low right now, 3-9, right there with the Sixers. And we said it yesterday. We'll say it over and over and over. We're going to have great spots to buy these playoff caliber teams when they get healthy in coming months, but the time is not now. I would probably lean to the Nuggets to take care of business, even without Jokic. I think their guys will go in there and have some focus. And segue into the next big-time play, Luke. At 10 o'clock, Grizzlies at Warriors. Warriors really turning up here to the surprise of many early season. 9-2, also great against the spread. We'll talk the spread in a minute, but you are looking at Santi Aldama rebounds under 7.5.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not a lot of people betting on Santi Aldama's props, but I don't care. That there's value if you look in the right spot. And his under is the play for me here. It's under 7.5 rebounds. You see he averages 7.6 on the year, and that's fine. So, you know, that might intrigue a couple people to take the over. But he's actually gone under this line in 4 of the last 5 games. So that's 80% of the time. And then what I really look to here is his minute share compared to last season. He is starting for this Grizzlies roster. He's playing only, though, 4 minutes more than last season. And last season, he had just 5.8 rebounds per game. That shows that he's kind of just having these falsely inflated rebound games early in the year, and he's dropped back down to reality. The line has not adjusted fully yet, and that's why the under is the play here. And then my last piece, I guess, would just be matchup-wise. Golden State, as we've known over many years now, they'll have their spurts where they go with the small lineup. They'll play a guard-heavy lineup, and in that, Aldama just doesn't have as much value. He might actually get decreased minute share And then the last piece is also how he plays. He gets 5 3-point attempts per game. He's out on the perimeter. I just don't think the rebounds is the way to go here. I'm fading him. I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. You are the prop master. You know the details on these guys. I just know the name, but on the game itself, throwing it to Junior. Junior, this is going to be a good game. 10 o'clock Chase Center. Of course, that is 7 o'clock Pacific. ESPN National. We thought Ja Morant would be in here. Unfortunately, he's injured. Warriors look great. Any thoughts on this one?
I don't really have too much on this. I think it's hard for teams to match up with what Golden State's doing. They're essentially a platoon. They have 11 players that play 15 minutes a game or more. I promise you, I don't really have that stat in front of me. I promise you it's going to be hard for you to find a team that has more than like 8 guys that play 15 minutes or more. So they're just killing you with fresh bodies constantly, and one of the best shot makers to ever touch a basketball. And honestly, Draymond Green looks like he's back. He can't score to save his life, but his defense is looking like it's back to being elite. And that combination of Steph and Dre with these young guys that, again, are a sum. Their sum is greater than their parts. Or I don't know if I'm saying that properly, but the sum of their team is greater than the individual parts, and that's like Steve Kerr's ideal way to coach and to play basketball, right? He comes from the Chicago Bulls and the Spurs line where, like Shark, you're a little bit younger than me, but you're old enough to have seen the Bulls play in their heyday. But you can't even name past like their 4 or 5 starters. You can't name most of those guys, but those guys all had a hand to play in winning those championships. Same for the guys on the Spurs. And I think, now I'm not comparing this Golden State team to those teams, but Steve Kerr has his ideal style of basketball, and he's making the most of it right now. In the second half, if you look at the Warriors splits, if you guys want to get in on some live bets, which is how I've been making money with the Warriors, they've been blowing teams out of the water in net rating in the second half. They're at like plus 16, they're the best second half team in the league.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point. And, I had a bunch of notes on this, and it really is centered on that this is a Golden State team sitting here 9-2 ATS. I think they have something massively to prove here, and I think they're very intelligent. They know this league is wide open for a championship, and I really mean that. We've been saying this for a while now. The stars of yesteryear are older. LeBron, KD, these guys, they're older. The next generation are younger. Halliburton, Edwards, I could go on. In my opinion, the only 3 teams that are really centered and in their window right now are Boston, Denver, the Warriors, and Cleveland. And you could maybe make an argument for the Knicks getting it together, but I think the Knicks are still fringe. I really think those are the top 4 teams that have stars that are still in their prime, not too aged, but not too young. And this league really is wide open. And Junior, going back to what you said about this team and the dispersion of minutes and the depth, while you were saying that, I brought up the roster from 2014, 2015, which of course was a championship year and really the beginning of their arc. And we're assuming now this is like the beginning of a new arc with all these younger players. You guys remember at that point in time, it was Steph, Clay, and Draymond, but it was Harrison Barnes, Iguodala, Maurice Spates, Festus Ezeli, Leandro Barbosa, Sean Livingston. They were deep, they were young, they were professional, and that's what you're seeing now with this group. They've really done a great job here bringing in a new roster. On this game tonight, this is going to be a tough cap ATS. Memphis without Ja Morant is 3-0 ATS. They did get very fortunate to backdoor the Lakers the other night with a couple 3-pointers and a tip-in to cover the spread. But nonetheless, 3-0 ATS. And if you guys recall, a couple years ago when Ja Morant didn't play, not last year, but a couple years ago, the Memphis Grizzlies were fantastic against the spread without Ja. And it seems like they're kind of reverting back to that with Triple J and Desmond Bane. I have this game graded Golden State to win by 5 and not cover the spread, which I think does make sense in the in-season tournament NBA Cup. I think Memphis fits that model of young team who will care a lot tonight, more so than the Warriors. I think the Warriors get the job done on the money line, but I do see this game being inside of 8.5 points. And I think the over, just by default, is extremely notable. This line's sitting at 232.5. I have it to hit almost 250, right around 246. Memphis is playing a wide open style. You saw the game against the Lakers the other night, 253 points or 251 points, something like that. And the Warriors are also playing incredibly up tempo. You guys have any thoughts on the over in this game?
I'll leave that to Junior. I definitely don't, since I was just looking at props. But I'll leave that to you guys.
Junior, any thoughts on the over?
Sorry, your voice is cutting out. Which game are you referring to?
Oh, the Warriors Grizzlies over.
Oh, we're still in the same game. I don't really, because the thing with the Warriors is, I'm going to sound like a hater. I'm not sure I believe that this can continue. They're getting the high end of variance for so many different guys. Other than Pajinski, everybody's playing way above their means. DeAndre Melton did hurt himself recently. I'm just not really sure they can sustain this. So I'm not going to just say that I'm on the under, because I know that the Grizzlies obviously are a good defensive team as well. I got to admit when I don't know. And I just can't say that I can give you specific points as to why Golden State's defense is so good. I will say this. Whatever Steve Kerr is doing, he's not allowing teams to take layups. They're in like the bottom five, top five, I suppose, in terms of allowing teams to get to the basket, which is contributing in a huge way to their defense. But again, if you look at the makeup of their team, I don't really know how sustainable this is. Like Trace Jackson, whatever his name is Trace Jackson Davis, is he really like a shutdown defender? Like, I don't know. I think Draymond Green, if this keeps up, you can shoe in Draymond Green for another Defensive Player of the Year, because it's really the only logical explanation that I have. But the Warriors are an elite interior defensive team somehow with this smaller sized lineup.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm correlating it back to the 2014-15 group, because I think at that point people were not really sold on those role players either in terms of a championship type of team. So I think we could be in the beginning really of a run here. And, I've always enjoyed Steph Curry. I think he's just changed the game, and he's an elite watch from an entertainment standpoint. So I'm always rooting for the Warriors, but I think a tight game tonight. Last game on the card here, 12 games, ripping through it. 10 o'clock, Golden One Center, Sacramento, California. Minnesota 6-6, lackluster as hell. Sacramento 7-5, I would say. Very inconsistent. It's going to be a tough game. I got some notes on it. Luke, any prop thoughts or any commentary?
Yeah, I'll just be really brief on this one because I don't have a strong play. And I would just lean towards Rudy Gobert's over on his rebounds or points, or maybe you could even go PRA. I just think he matches up well. Yes, Sabonis is a great player. He's really good offensive and defensive. I just think Gobert has a little bit of an edge, height and length with his wingspan, and could get a couple easy dunks, possibly get some fouls on Sabonis. So I'd go Gobert over on a stat line, but it's just a lean.
Yeah, I think this is a tough game. I want to give some psychological remarks on this, but I'll throw it to Junior. Junior, any thoughts on the Wolves, mediocrity, Sacramento, inconsistent, or just this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to keep repeating the same thing. If you don't have a point guard, you don't have order. And Mike Conley, is no coincidence, he didn't play in the last game, and they looked worse than ever. If you just look at the roster, they're so devoid of point guards on the roster that they had to bring up Rob Dillingham, the kid from Kentucky, and put him into the lineup and give him minutes. Unfortunately, fortunately for him, offensively, he looks like he has star potential, but he weighs like 165 pounds. So defensively, teams are going to attack him. So I'm not really sure he's the guy to solve your problem. He's going to need a couple more months in the weight room. So I would still look closely, unless they can get Dante DiVincenzo, to somehow reinvent himself and be more of a facilitator while he looks for his shot. Because if Dante DiVincenzo's not making shots and he's not making plays for others, what exactly is he doing? A whole lot of nothing is what he's doing. So that is a huge problem. The DiVincenzo not making shots plus not having a point guard, that combination is exactly, to me, why you're seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, I agree. We've said this a few times on this show already, but I think trading Towns sounded good and give Anthony Edwards the wheel 100% and all this stuff. But Julius Randle is a bit of a heady player. He's very inconsistent shooting the ball. And Dante DiVincenzo had a breakout year with the Knicks. last year, but he's only been in the league for a few years. He's not really proven in any capacity of any sustainability. I think this team's really in a tough spot without a point guard, as Junior mentioned. 6-6 straight up, 3 straight losses, laid a total egg against Miami without Jimmy Butler on Sunday, and then lost 2 in a row to Portland on the road. And we said this on the Wednesday show. I said you want to take Minnesota in theory, but is this team just not the team? And they proved to us they're not the team. I think that was really a showcase, that second loss to Portland, of really where Minnesota is right now. And I have written down here, the team thinks they've been anointed. And I really believe that. I think Anthony Edwards, I like this guy, I really do. But I think he's a little too big time for himself right now. You made it to the Eastern Conference Final or the Western Conference Finals, bro. You didn't win a title. This means something. You literally have done nothing in this league. He's shooting 3 balls at an alarming rate. He's not Steph Curry. That's not really his game. The focus isn't there. And I think that they're going to continue to struggle. And we talked about Sacramento in terms of their mental makeup and the psychology of this group being a bounce back team, which they are. And they did bounce back and hammer Phoenix the other night. But the same psychology of a bounce back team coming off a loss and therefore being more focused also speaks to the fact that they play to bigger game moments. And I think this really does fit a big game for Sacramento. Friday night, NBA Cup at home, and it's a revenge game. The opener this year back in October, the 24th, Minnesota did actually win outright 117-115 in this gym. A real tight one, real tight late. And I think Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, notable competitors will be really jacked up to win an NBA Cup game at home and advance, hopefully, to the second round here in coming weeks, and to revenge Minnesota. I think Minnesota's just in a brutal spot right now. I don't like the psychology of this group. If I had to lean in this game, I would probably lean towards Sacramento. 47 minutes in the books here, 12 games of fast NBA player performance on this Friday. We appreciate you guys immensely for tuning in. We love to bring you guys the detail, the commentary, the energy, and the official plays. My official plays, Toronto plus 1.5, San Antonio plus 3.5, a collaboration with Junior, Let's Dominate, and over Nets 215. Junior also on Philadelphia to commence upward movement, plus 2.5, and Brooklyn plus 9.5. Luke, the prop master, 4 plays on a Friday. Terry Rozier, PRA under 29.5. Santi Aldama, rebounds under 7.5. Franz Wagner under 26.5 points. And Yusuf Nurkic under 26.5 points. Beautiful show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. For Junior, for J.A. Cavalier, Coach Rick, get better, and for Luke, NBA player performance on this Friday. Let's cash these tickets.